The 80s were a wild time. It was the decade of insane hair full of hairspray, colorful clothes, Miami Vice, Stallone and Schwarzenegger, and most importantly, heavy metal. 80s heavy metal might be among the best, worst, and most iconic metal eras to ever exist. No other decade was as wild as the 80s, when heavy metal ruled the world and men in spandex and makeup were considered the biggest playboys and womanizers on earth.
So ring out the holidays with me, Santa Snyder, and my surprise guest, as we count down the 20 most humongous videos ever on Heavy Metal Mania's Measure of Metal, Thursday night at 10, 9 Central on MTV. Watch it!
80s heavy metal, be it hair metal, thrash metal, or any of the other hundreds of subgenres, was something special. It was a time unlike any other because the music here felt fresh and original and was constantly changing. The genre was evolving fast, with many new bands fighting for the spotlight and trying to dominate the scene. There is a lot of debate and gatekeeping within the community on what can be considered metal and what can't, as well as what bands were metal and which weren't. And it's easy to do that from today's perspective, 40 to 30 years after the genre was in its prime and ruling the earth, even though gatekeepers are the biggest clowns on earth and their opinions should matter anyway. But back then, during the late 70s all the way through the 80s, metal was still evolving and barely out of its infancy. Legendary bands such as Deep Purple, Black Sabbath, and Led Zeppelin are among the founding fathers of metal and still considered to be the foundation upon which all other bands stand. They influenced the genre in massive ways and also helped to create the image and even lifestyle that many bands later would try to imitate and recreate. Deep Purple and Black Sabbath in particular were seen as the heaviest bands around at the time. They were the original headbangers that thrashed the stage while playing the guitar like wild demons on cocaine and LSD. They were considered the roughest and edgiest stuff around, and even today, watching their live concerts, it's easy to see why. I mean, even now, watching the video for Paranoid by Sabbath, it still feels like some of the coolest and heaviest shit around, with all the black and white satanic imagery, lightning strikes, and Ozzy banging his head like he's possessed by Satan, the king of rock himself. Hearing this stuff in 1970 either made you fear for your soul or your daughter's panties. Sabbath laid one side of the foundation by introducing some of the heaviest riffs and edgiest aesthetics that were sure to piss off Christians and conservatives, calling them devil worshippers and a corruption of the youth. Deep Purple, on the other hand, laid the other side of the foundation by introducing much more refined lyrics and complex compositions that were genius and honestly unrivaled to this day, in my opinion. Ritchie Blackmore and Jon Lord were creating music that felt like it was from another world and a mind-blowing experience to witness. You have to keep in mind that back in the 70s and even 80s, music classification was much simpler than it is today. There weren't as many subgenres as there are today, and music wasn't as widely accessible or spread as it is now due to social media and various apps. Back then, rock was either heavy or it wasn't, and groups that today wouldn't necessarily be considered metal were put into the same category as some of the heaviest bands around. One such group was Kiss. They're extremely influential and had a profound impact on the genre, especially glam and hair metal, despite themselves mostly being a hard rock band. But then again, back in the 70s, even Kiss was considered a heavy band. Their makeup and costumes in particular made them stand out and gave them a larger-than-life feeling. So while their music might not have been as heavy as Sabbath, they presented themselves as what we today would consider metal. Their demonic outfits, satanic images, songs about sex, drugs and rock and roll made them edgy and one of the most successful bands of the time. It's also important to note how their outfits impacted the metal genre in profound ways, going so far as to even heavily influencing the entire black metal scene visually.
Spectacular new Kiss show. The smoke, the flames, the exploding sound and fury of Kiss. Saturday, January 22nd at the Stadium.
The greatest part of 80s metal was the aesthetic and attitude the genre had. It didn't take itself too seriously, and music was often about partying, sex, and drinking more than you can handle. The lyrics weren't groundbreaking in most cases, and honestly, it didn't have to be. The genre had a big party attitude, which was reflected in the music videos, and their real-life behavior.
Somebody was asking me the other day how I got the idea for the song Animal. Said I hooked up a videotape in my bedroom, rolled it back, made it rhyme.
And that's one thing that I love so much about it. Listening to hair metal, for example, feels refreshing and even relaxing, especially when compared to some of the later or more modern bands and songs. It was the type of music that you could listen to while on a romantic date with your girlfriend, and then definitely get lucky if you were smart enough to play some Dokken or Bon Jovi. Say what you want about the wild styles of metal bands back then, but you can't deny that the look they had was 10 times as original as pure black shirts that you see on most metal bands today. Motley Crue, Dokken, W.A.S.P, Rat, Quiet Riot, and so many more look like they were about to rock till the end of time, while also being wild party animals. Be honest, who would you rather hang out with, W.A.S.P or Motley Crue in their glory, or some band wearing black shirts, cargo pants, and biker beards, screaming like they smoked too many cigarettes on the way to their gig? I know which ones I'd rather be around, especially when looking for a good time, as I want nothing but a good time. Motley Crue is among the most important bands within the decade because they really formed and created hair metal the way we know it today. They took the stage presence and makeup from Kiss, the edgy satanic images and lyrics from Sabbath, and the glam of the New York Dolls, David Bowie and T-Rex, and created a sound that had not been done before by anyone. It might be hard to believe, but back when Motley Crue released Too Fast for Love, it was seen as the heaviest, edgiest, and sleaziest shit around. In fact, it was so heavy that conservative Christians started nationwide campaigns to ban this type of music and the whole genre because it was corrupting kids and being a bad influence on society, as well as straight up demon worship, apparently. Other bands followed, each trying to amp up the edginess, the guitar riffs, and see how much attention they can get by being the baddest, wildest bands around. Among my favorite bands of that period is W.A.S.P, a band that I personally consider to be extremely underrated, but also important in how it shaped the sound of 80s metal and was able to walk the line between being a pure heavy metal band and a hair metal or a glam metal band. Their albums, especially the earlier ones, were a great mix between heavy and glam sounds, and I consider Blackie Lawless to have one of the most amazing and original voices I have ever heard.
Kiss away the pain and leave me lonely. I'll never know if love's a lie.
W.A.S.P managed to write some of the most offensive lyrics, and it got so bad that some of their albums, such as Animal, was straight up banned in some countries, heavily censored, and almost banned in the US. The PMRC, led by Tipper Gore, declared war on the band as well as on most other metal bands of the time and tried to straight up ban the entire genre. All of this ended up in front of Congress and forced record labels to now put warning signs and age ratings on albums. I'm sure Tipper Gore thought this would have the effect she desired, but it actually increased metal album sales and the sales of any album that had such a rating in general, because the music now seemed edgier and wilder than before, officially being deemed too explicit.
I got pictures of naked ladies and on the beds. I fuck like a beast.
Our songs about glorifying incest, there's songs about rape, thrill killing, sadomasochism. There's a song that goes, quote, not a woman but a whore, I can taste the hate, well now I'm killing you, watch your face turning blue, unquote, by a group that has sold 2 million copies of that particular album. They're very popular with young kids.
Recording studios voluntarily responded to the campaign against heavy metal songs. So that parents can see what their kids are buying, many records now contain sexually explicit warnings on the label.
The labels merely read parental advisory, explicit lyrics, but area teachers regard that as a major step toward reducing some of the influence the words are having on our youth. One young ZZ Top fan said he sees no reason for all the fuss.
You know, it's just words. It's how well, you know, you want to relate to the words.
Give me all your loving, all your hugs and kisses too.
They tried to stop Elvis Presley from every pulpit in America. They burned Beatles records in public in Alabama in the 60s because John Lennon said that they were more popular than Jesus. The fact that it was true had nothing to do with it. But it was only because people would do it that they could pick up that shit and burn it. You understand?
Nobody was frightened of them.
In Hollywood in the 40s, in the 50s, McCarthy, Red's under the bed, you know, and better dead than red and all of that shit. People in Hollywood were informing on each other, friends, right? Putting somebody else in the fucking hot seat because then they wouldn't be, and saying, I'm not a communist. But the motherfucker couldn't have done a damn thing, man. Everybody would not have been running around shit scared of him.
You know, one thing that people have to remember, and that's that this is America. And even though you may be a very vocal minority, you certainly don't speak for the majority. And this country is run by majority. And because somebody happens to have a big mouth or have a husband who holds a seat in the Senate is not a reason to have laws passed. I think maybe they should spend a little more time in the kitchen. Get their biscuits in the oven and their buns in the bed.
From a modern perspective, it's hilarious to me how these people honestly thought that some heavy riffs and explicit lyrics was such a big deal and that they had to waste so much time and energy fighting a fight they were sure to lose anyway. It seems so insignificant considering that there were far more important and pressing issues that Gore and similar groups could have invested their time into. The 80s were definitely a wild time and a decade that stands out from all others that came before or after. It's hard for us to understand, especially those of us that haven't lived through it and experienced this crazy insanity firsthand. A lot of those things that were considered cool and groundbreaking back then are often seen in a cringy or badly dated way, which is something almost every decade has to deal with sooner or later. Heavy metal in the 80s was a unique experience because it was all about having fun and making love. It was the type of music that was designed to get you on your feet and shake your ass until you drop dead on the highway to hell. One of the most important bands of the time, arguably the one band that dominated and ruled all others in the 80s, was Judas Priest. A band so heavy and amazing that their front singer was named the Metal God. Judas Priest was one of the most important bands to have ever lived, and they essentially created the whole aesthetic that is often associated with metal music, the leather-wearing biker rebel that keeps breaking the law.
Is that what kind of drugs you're doing?
Yeah, drugs. Fucking hair,
beer.
Cocaine, man.
All right, so you guys like Priest, right?
Yeah.
All right. How about Dawkins? How's anybody feel about that?
Dawkins.
That would not be what it is today.
Are they really about the test?
To the door, love it till the morning. I'm gone.
What would you say? What would you say if you saw Rob Halford right now?
I'd jump his bones.
They introduced a whole BDSM heavy side to metal music that you can still see in a lot of modern bands. Judas Priest dominated the scene, often walking the line between heavy and glam music. People often don't get just how important Judas Priest was and also just how far back they go as a band. They were on the front lines during the new wave of British heavy metal, which is a whole massive topic for another video, but it's safe to say that metal might have died if it wasn't for this new wave of British heavy metal. A genre which gave birth to bands such as Motorhead, Iron Maiden, Def Leppard, Raven, Diamond Head, and many more. In fact, it was so important that it literally directly impacted thrash metal and Metallica, who started out as a Diamond Head cover band. 80s metal was a time of party, sex, drugs and rock and roll, excess, heavy makeup and wild guitar riffs that will never grow old or be forgotten. The aesthetics of that period might be outdated, but the music lives on, and with the rise of social media is attracting more and more younger audiences.
It sucks shit! Heavy metal rules! Heavy metal rules! All that punk shit sucks. It doesn't belong in this world. It belongs on fucking Mars, man. What the hell is punk shit? And Madonna can go to hell as far as I'm concerned. She's a dick.
The 80s were the wildest musical decade in human history. There was an insane level of diversity when it came to genres, artists and bands. And all of these genres were pushing themselves to be bigger, better and over the top, introducing crazy hairstyles and clothing that made them look like crazy scientists experimenting with synth beats. But none of them were as wild as heavy metal and especially hair metal. It ruled the 80s and dominated the entire decade because of its wild and outrageous attitude, behavior and sound.
It sucks shit! Heavy metal rules! Heavy metal rules! All that punk shit sucks. It doesn't belong in this world. It belongs on fucking Mars, man. What the hell is punk shit? And Madonna can go to hell as far as I'm concerned.
It was the greatest decade for metal music and a time when heavy metal was still relevant and evolving. I mean, it was really everywhere, even constantly talked about on the news by politicians or various activists trying to ban it, such as radical Christians thinking metal was devil's music.
We're holding them responsible for encouraging kids to do violent acts against themselves.
But unlike most other heavy metal subgenres, hair metal was different in major ways. It tried to be as offensive as possible, it tried to push the limits when it came to crazy instrumental compositions and stage antics.
The outrageous edge of rock and roll has shifted its focus from Elvis's pelvis to the saw protruding from Blackie Lawless's codpiece on a W.A.S.P album.
I got this glint in my eye whenever I'm performing, which keeps people off balance where they're asking, is he or isn't he serious about this? Those people have obviously never seen that glint. I mean, how can any grown man walk around with a 12-inch saw blade between his legs and take that seriously?
One of its defining features was its look and presentation. The way these bands carried themselves and the way they dressed played a major role in their appeal and even the way the music sounded. Just by listening to most hair bands, you can already imagine how they looked.
There's one soft drink with a taste so electrifying, it's pure rock and roll. Pepsi, the choice of a new generation.
They were full of long hair, sticky with loads of hairspray, makeup, colorful clothes, and a smell that was a mix between women, cigarettes, and bottles of whiskey. And this image wasn't just for PR purposes or attention. The music and their real-life behavior often reflected this look and party attitude. Kiss is a great example because these guys were already doing it for almost a decade before hair metal blew up. Kiss was massive in the 70s and they had a huge impact on the genre, not to mention their strong influence on Motley Crue, who cite them as one of their biggest influences.
Kiss smashes, thrashes, and hits. Your Kiss collection isn't complete without smashes, thrashes, and hits. 13 rockers, remixed and remastered, plus 2 new tracks produced by Paul Stanley. Don't miss smashes, thrashes, and hits.
While Kiss didn't invent glam metal, they were by far the most influential and impactful glam band, even outperforming and outshining musicians such as the New York Dolls or T-Rex.
Best believe I'm in love, L-U-V. I always saw you just before the dawn, and I'm looking for a kiss.
Which was mainly because Kiss knew how to market themselves and make a lasting impression. Their shows were unforgettable, with lots of energy that perfectly matched their demonic and alien-like outfits. And it's easy to see why they had such a strong impact on hair metal and hair metal bands.
Asylum. The new Kiss album. Accept no imitations.
Available at all Tape World and Record Town locations for $6.99.
Yes, the Paul Stanley workout tape for dirty minds and clean bodies. I will show you how to get the body you always wanted and the woman it belongs to. Yes, the Paul Stanley exercise tape. Join me, won't you?
The Paul Stanley workout tape, available where better videos are sold.
Because a muscle is a terrible thing to waste.
Because they were all about partying, getting late, and having a good time. The songs, aside from power ballads, were usually uplifting and made to get you head banging or dancing. It wasn't like grunge, for example, where bands had a habit of writing about dark and depressing subject matter all the time, which in my opinion is also why it's more fun to listen to something like Bon Jovi or Motley Crue rather than Nirvana. As amazing and legendary as Nirvana is, because there's only a handful of times that you can listen to songs that sound dark and hopeless. Bon Jovi, on the other hand, was made to be listened to on repeat all the time.
I'm John Bon Jovi, and I've been given a script to talk to you about drugs, rock and roll, having fun, a good time, and all that good stuff. Well, I'll tell you what, drugs is not a part of my everyday routine. It's not everyday fun. It's not good for you. All right, so listen, think twice before you do drugs, because there ain't no winners out there doing it.
On the street where you live, girls talk about the social lives. All your life, all your best friends, your daddy gonna talk to you. Oh, she's a little runaway. Tina works a diner all day. We gotta hold on to what we've got.
Which was the case with most hair metal songs. Their whole idea was to be as pleasant to listen to as possible, and interestingly enough, the lyrics often didn't play a big role. A song could have highly questionable lyrics such as Winger's 17, but still be played by major radio or TV stations due to its catchy sound. Which is not to say that there was no controversy around such songs or that these bands didn't put any effort into the lyrics. There was, and they did, at least the major bands.
Yeah, I'm on acid, that's where I am.
Is that alright? Is that what kind of drugs you're doing?
Yeah, drug, fucking hair, everything.
Beer.
Cocaine, baby.
Alright, so you guys like Priest, right?
Yeah.
I mean, alright. How about Dawkins? How's anybody feel about it?
Dawkins.
Rules. Metal would not be what it is today without Priest.
Are they really about the best?
Yeah.
I mean, they're better. What other shows have you seen here?
But Metallica.
We're going to Ocean City. After this, we are headed to Ocean City to party more.
They should legalize drugs. That is a fact.
World Tour 85. August 7th at Pittsburgh Civic Arena. Get your leather together.
Motley Crue, for example, was constantly surrounded by media controversy either due to their reckless and out-of-control behavior or due to their music being written in, at least at the time, highly offensive and sexual ways.
JJ with the music news for you. Motley Crue has just entered the top 10 for the first time with their latest album, Theater of Pain. And the first single off of that album was the Crue's interpretation of Brownsville Station's Smoking in the Boys' Room.
It would be unfair to say that hair metal was very superficial and had no substance to it, or that these artists were not capable of writing amazing and even deep lyrics. They were, and some of these people were extremely talented and wrote some of the most iconic songs ever made. Songs that are still played on the radio to this very day, not to mention the recent resurgence of the entire genre thanks to social media and sites such as YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok.
Hungry for Rat? Dig into their new album, Invasion of Your Privacy, featuring the hit single Lay It Down. You know you really want to lay it down. And feast your eyes on Rat the Video, featuring Lay It Down plus 4 other Rat classics.
Superficial in the sense that image and looks played a huge role, not just talent. A lot of these bands would straight up refuse certain people from joining if they didn't have the looks they were going for. But that's just one of the reasons why the genre is so great. These aren't just regular musicians, they are performers.
There's no waking up from this nightmare. A Nightmare on Elm Street, Part 3, Dream Warriors.
When you went to see Motley Crue, Twisted Sister, Rat, or Quiet Riot, for example, you knew that, besides some amazing music, you were about to see a wild show. These guys knew how to have fun, and they also didn't take themselves too seriously. They made music because it was fun and because they wanted to have a good time.
Hi, this is Paul Stanley, and guess who I'm spending tonight with? I'm spending tonight with you. I'm going to have videos from Kiss, Scorpions, Iron Maiden new video, Motley Crue, what more could you want? On MTV's Heavy Metal Mania. I'm hosting with all my girlfriends, and we're coming looking for you. 10 p.m., 9 Central. Be there.
Hair metal is one of the most interesting subgenres of heavy metal because of its diversity and willingness to evolve and experiment. People these days don't really understand just how complex hair metal could be. Many view it as a joke or like a bad decade in music, despite the fact that hair bands sold more records than most other artists at the time. I mean, Quiet Riot literally beat down Michael Jackson's Thriller and took the first spot on the Billboard charts instead, which is wild to think about considering just how massive the Thriller album was. The fact that a heavy metal band overtook it was a huge deal at the time, and it still is a big deal and one of the reasons why Metal Health is such a legendary album. Hair metal had a lot of different sides, and one thing people don't understand is that to be a glam rock band, you didn't necessarily have to look like Motley Crue or Twisted Sister. Not all of them had tons of makeup or wore spandex. Sure, most of them did have a style that usually did not reflect how they dressed outside of music videos or on the stage, which is something that made Metallica so popular because they dressed authentically and like themselves.
They're just like us. They party, everything. They turn it up. They crank up the volume.
It's different. It's great. Kill 'em all. That album is the best. The lightning is the best.
You see, there's only one thrash band around that I know of, and that's Metallica. We're playing tonight at 7:30, and I suggest that everybody gets down here right now and see the best thrash in the United States of America!
But even Twisted Sister or Motley Crue did not constantly run around in makeup. Especially towards the later half of the 80s, a lot of these bands switched to wearing denim and boots, much closer to their roots that actually came from the new wave of British heavy metal, a genre that heavily influenced 80s heavy metal and hair metal.
To the dawn, loving till the morning. I'm gone, I'm gone. Living after midnight.
Their drums bang with vengeance. Their voices scream with power. Their guitars shatter your senses. Metal Maniacs, your albums arrive. Masters of Metal with Rush, Dawkins, Van Halen, and Kiss. Rainbow, Crocus, and hard-rockin' Iron Maiden. Masters of Metal. It'll leave you screaming for more at a store near you.
You can't stop rock and roll with steam and flow. You'll never to be caught. Cold as ice, hard as stone. All hell's breaking loose. It's a showdown in a no man's land. Baby, cross my wire. Overload my circuit.
The 80s were a great time for music and especially heavy metal. There was so much diversity when it came to bands and subgenres that it really wasn't hard to find a great new band. Hair metal in particular was everywhere towards the end of the decade. It ruled the charts, the news, MTV and the radio, and even lived rent-free in the minds of conservative Christians trying to ban this evil devil's music. These guys were constantly competing with each other, which led to some iconic records, and it also brought about the era of MTV's Heavy Metal Mania and Headbangers Ball.
Again, fish. Fish. MTV. Fish.
One day when I was watching MTV, I decided to count all the exclusive videos by pulling out a hair for every one I saw. Pretty dumb, huh?
Hi, my name is Dave. I used to be a jerk, and then I got MTV. I watched 3 times a day, and now I'm a wonderful person. Just hit the switch and you're at MTV.
Should've known better, should've seen right through. She said you just got lucky. I believe your deadly lies. She's my cherry pie. Wow! I'm swinging on the front porch, swinging on the lawn. Cool drinking water, such a sweet surprise.
Friday night, Motley Crue may have a new, clean, sober image, but they still rock the charts with Dr. Feelgood on Night Track's Power Hits. Then on Nightflix, Boy Meets Girl, Boy Falls for Girl, Boy's Computer Tries to Stop It, Electric Dreams. It all begins at 11:20 Eastern on TBS Friday night.